Hello Internet. Recently I updated worldofzero.com. This is sort of the website that I use to publish all of the stuff personally for either videos. So you'll see a lot of the same videos that I've published on YouTube here, or just like separate random blog posts and things. That was sort of the main purpose of updating this, is so that that was all possible. But there's a lot going on here to make this work. So this is going to be sort of a series, I guess, of updates to improve how all of this works, because it's not quite where I want it yet. Tags are broken, for example. We're not going to do that in this video, but that's going to come up in a future video. What I want to focus on right now is there's a limitation in YouTube descriptions that prevents you from using carets, or the greater than and less than signs, I guess. And that causes issues, especially in like C#, where that's a symbol for generics, or just comparisons like is greater than or equal to and things like that. You start running into issues, and the way this whole thing works, if you read my descriptions on YouTube, they're markdown formatted. That actually gets parsed, and then if you go into one of these, this is just the description from YouTube, but it's run through a markdown parser, so it looks much nicer, and you can actually get a little bit more context and actually see things going a little better. But because we can't use those carets, one, the code doesn't work. If we use generics or greater than or less than, that code will not work at all, because we can't actually input it into YouTube. And so what I want to do is add some sort of post-processing parser to kind of take some of the tricks that I'm using to get around that and fix them so that the code is correct on this website. But there's also a few other things. Markdown has a quote syntax, which uses the greater than sign to signify the start of a quote. We can't do that either because, again, no greater than sign. So that's what we're going to be working on today, is just sort of trying to get this parser working. I'm probably not going to get through all of this, but the way this whole thing works is there is a cron job set up in GitHub Actions that runs every 24 hours. So at, I think it's 8 a.m. UTC, which is about midnight here in Pacific time. It reruns a check, scans every video that I've uploaded to YouTube, and sees if there's any changes. If there are any changes, it opens a PR against this website, which is then, once merged, published. So that PR just needs to be merged. I have a bunch of CI stuff to do that. And then once I merge that in, it automatically goes live here. And so it's sort of just an automated thing. I just need to click a button and articles start going live once I publish a video. So it's pretty nice. Just there's some of these things that I need to kind of iron out still. If there's more questions about how my website actually works, let me know, because I spent a lot of time kind of getting it the way I liked. And so there's a bunch of magic that I started throwing in. Anyway, we're going to focus on this. So this is just going to be like a live coding thing. I'm just going to start poking at things. I have an idea of what I want to do. But this is one of those things where there's probably a lot of ways to solve this, and we're going to do a hacky way first. And it'll kind of give us a little bit of an excuse to kind of poke at some of the code that's doing some of the magic behind all of this. So the way everything works is there is this. This is actually a convenient place to open up. This is the template. So all of those articles that you saw, that's what these are. I forget what this is. This is some sort of ASP page thing. I'm Razor Pages. That's what this is. So this is pulling from the video content, and actually just allows me to insert that content anywhere I want. So I can modify this and get new videos however I want. And then I just rerun this job, and this goes and finds a specific channel. That's the channel ID for World of Zero, generates them and outputs them to a specific directory. And so the markdown files are generated with this syntax, which looks gross, but it works. And then that eventually gets checked in. I do not need to check the videos in, or the new updates in automatically, because they'll automatically just go into that PR and be done with. So it kind of removes some of the maintenance for me. On the right-hand side here, there is just a Hugo test server. So I can run the local website if I want to. We might get into that. But what I want to do, we're going to focus really specifically on one thing right now. if I search for note, I was already poking around with this. Let me make that a little bit nicer to read. But if I search for note, note is like something that I've been using to kind of say this should be highlighted. And you'll see there's a bunch of these. But if I just go to one of these, there's a note. What I want to do is replace this with that so that it's quoted. We're not going to actually be modifying these files manually though, because we're going to do it the cool automated way. The problem is that doesn't actually work. What ends up happening is we're just pulling directly from the video snippet, which means I haven't done any processing whatsoever. The only processing that is really happening is words are hard. The only processing that's happening is the name generation. I generate a custom short name in this file. All of this stuff is open source, so you can go and check this code out. I'm not going to spend a lot of time looking through this, but this is what does the name generation for articles. This is the only extra processing, and that just changes the name of the file. It doesn't change the data that's going into it. So we go into the file generator. This is where all the magic happens, specifically in this function right here. And this is just automatically generating things. That was a separate play thing. So this is just generating the title and then creating the markdown file and then writing the contents to that file after running it through that template. What we need to do is update this playlist item, and I don't think this is gonna work. Playlist item dot snippet dot description. Oh, it does have a setter. Does this work? All right, so I've made this change. So if I run this, it doesn't work. Because it does not exist. Why? What? Hold on. I'm sorry. Go back. Why doesn't the thing exist? I may have just completely confused. There we go. It's okay. I don't know what that error was. We're gonna ignore it. But it was saying something didn't exist. We should see a whole bunch of changes. We're gonna use this as sort of our indicator of what's changing, because everything's checked into Git, so we'll actually see all the changes that we made. This should replace the description with foo. Cool. So that means we actually can update this description. So what we're going to do is do playlist item dot snippet dot description. And we're gonna plug that into a update description. I suppose this will work. This is kind of gross, but it should be enough for what we just for testing. There's a number of actual things that I'm going to want to be able to replace, and so this first implementation probably isn't the full thing that we're going to want. There's going to be other things that we're going to want featured in this that are not going to really work well, but this is only the first one, and so we do not have enough knowledge to like write an abstraction over all of this because we're just getting started. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to spend a lot of time designing something really complicated when really all we need is return description dot replace. Can I use regular expressions? This isn't helpful. So what I want is anything that starts with note to be replaced with this. Should we do, yeah, let's do this. So something like this. And so regular expressions are weird, but they're kind of helpful in like this sort of situation. And the only real thing we're using it for is this little caret symbol that I don't even know what the name of that character is. I think caret. We're going to call it a caret. Anyway, that indicates that we want the start of our string. In this case, it would be the start of a new line. So anything that starts a new line and then starts with a capital N-O-T-E, we're going to match and then replace it with something else. The reason we need that character is because if we remove it, it will find every instance of note and replace it with something. And we do not want that because that is not going to do what we think it's going to do. And it's going to result in some really unreadable and gross stuff. I don't think this is going to work though. So we're going to do some regular expressions. That I forget how to use these though. So, oh, there we go. Cool. Regex.Replace is what we want. Replace, and we need to pass in our description, the input, the pattern, and then the replacement. So what this is going to do is it's going to match a pattern, this pattern, and then it is going to replace it with this other pattern. So we can actually do a really quick Regex101.com example of how this all works. So we have the pattern note. And so what we want to do is replace anything that looks like this, but not anything that says like, this is a note. Or I guess we'll do capital because whatever. But you see how it's matching the first instance and not matching the second instance, even though all the other characters are the same. This little character is giving us a little bit of a helping hand here and making sure that that has to start at the beginning of a sentence. So I think that's all we need actually. Again, very simple. We'll probably replace this with a configuration file at some point, but we can get started with just this. And so what we should see when I rerun this, most of these changes should go away. And the changes that do happen should be relatively minor. It should only be like the one line. If everything is still listed as a change, this didn't work. Or if nothing is listed as a change, this didn't work. That's not a good start. We may be doing this wrong. Because so technically this does not mean the start of a new line. It means the start of the entire sequence, the character sequence, which would mean the first actual character would need to match. And so we may need to do a little bit of tweaking here. RegexOptions.Multiline. There we go. So multiline means each line is going to be parsed individually. And so this means that now instead of matching the start of the string, it is going to match the start of every new line. And so by doing this, we should get a little bit of an update, and now we should see some changes. All that previous run meant is that none of the descriptions in my videos started with note as the very first thing. But now, hopefully, there we go. We have 5 updates. So you see note here, note here, note, etc. And so this is, I guess, what we want. This is like the most basic thing we could do. I've been using Latin characters. There's a Latin character that looks very similar to the greater than and less than sign, but is just slightly different. It's a different Unicode character, which means it isn't caught by that filter that prevents you from using them. But it also means that your code won't compile with it. So I need to replace that character too. So there's more that needs to happen here. But I guess this gives us a good starting point of how to replace these characters. And I think it's the first time we've really gone and used regex, regular expressions in a video. And this is probably the sanest way we could have used them. So that's probably a good thing. But I'll leave it here, I think. This is a good start. There'll be more of these, and I'll just try to keep them small, just so that we can kind of avoid just a ramble for hours, because there's actually a lot of work to do here. The tags specifically are going to be hard, and I don't know when I'm going to get to those. But there's just a lot of complexity there, and I'll get into that in that video. But yeah, if there's questions you have about how I'm running this, or you want to use some of what I wrote for your own website, feel free to ask in the comments or come and join our Discord. happy to chat there and help answer questions. And it should be something that you could theoretically pull in and start using. It's not super nice to use yet because I built it for myself and it's new, but that's something that could happen. So anyway, this is it for now, and I will see you in the next video. So until then, see you, internet.